Kayn has been out for a few weeks now, and currently he has the lowest win rate in both roles that he's been played in, which is top and jungle. Most people have been having trouble making Kayn extremely effective. I have been following Korean Kayn mains for the last few weeks, and I'm going to show you what they do to make this champion really work. So who's better, Bruiser Kayn or Assassin Kayn? When Kayn first came out, most people said that Assassin Kayn was shit and that Red Kayn was amazing. But that was mainly due to the fact that Assassin Kayn had a lot of bugs on release. The main one being that his passive wasn't properly proccing on items such as Duskblade. Blue Kayn was widely written off and considered garbage. Now that most of the bugs have been fixed, some people are finding that Blue Kayn is more effective than Red Kayn in some situations. So let's first talk about the most important thing, which is Kayn's passive. If you hit melee champions, you get red orbs. If you hit ranged champions, you get blue orbs. The bar shown on your summoner icon doesn't actually show total orbs gathered. It only shows your highest orb count for either red or blue. Unfortunately, this bar doesn't even show what type of orb it is, so you're gonna have to keep track of that yourself. Many players choose to camp one specific lane to get their preferred form, but you don't actually need to camp one lane to get your more desired form. The value of your orbs is dependent on what time in the game that you are currently in. Notice in this clip that I have swung at this totem a ridiculous amount of times, yet I've barely got half a bar. The earlier the game, the less valuable your orbs actually are. The later the game goes, the easier it is to fill your bar. My bar just then was half full of red orbs, but notice what one kill and one auto on Karthus did to just completely fill it with blue. Instead of constantly camping one lane with either ranged or melee champions in it, you can time yourself to gank that one specific champion later in the game so that your bar fills a lot faster. Now, suppose that this is not an option. Every game of League of Legends is different, and conditions will sometimes force you to get either an earlier blue form or an earlier red form, and you may have to wait. Sometimes the enemy team will all be ranged champions, and you'll only get blue orbs. So when you complete your form, should you wait on your other form? 4 minutes is a long time to wait for a crucial power spike. But how you choose your form is completely dependent on how you want to play the rest of the game out. You cannot limit yourself to a single form. The best Kayn players can play both red and blue Kayn. Though red Kayn is obviously much stronger, they are still capable of playing those dual playstyles. Red Kayn is more ideal for late game drawn out teamfights, while blue Kayn is better for single target assassinations and snowballing. Let's talk about Kayn's early game. The biggest problem that people have on Kayn is how they path with Kayn. Pathing is very important on every single jungler, but it's especially so on Kayn. That's because compared to other early game based junglers, he doesn't do that well in 1v1s. Compared to early game focused junglers, he doesn't really do that great when it comes to a 1v1. What he really excels at is stealing camps and making really weird jungle paths. Thanks to his insane mobility and the fact that his spells just cost so little, counter jungling is so easy on Kayn. Here are some really effective paths you can take on Kayn. Almost every single Kayn player starts Wraiths, but not every single Kayn player clears Wraiths properly. You can effectively clear Wraiths by taking almost no damage. Remember that your Q does damage in two ways, the dash and the spin. What you have to do is you have to hit the large Wraith and line up the small Wraiths so that they take both instances of damage. By doing this, you can effectively focus on the large Wraith, and you can clear this camp efficiently enough that your E will actually full heal you. The most common route that Kayn players take is going from Wraiths to red, to wolves, to blue, to scuttle, and then to the enemy Krug's camp. Most junglers do not take Krugs in their first clear, so this is the perfect target for counter jungling. This path also avoids most wards that get placed, so bot lane is completely unaware if you're coming in for a gank. This route is fairly safe, it gives you a lot of gold, and against players who aren't used to playing against Kayn, it's very difficult to see this gank coming. An alternative path is taking Wraiths to red to the enemy's blue. This jungle route is a bit riskier, but it's still very effective against junglers with slower clear times and junglers that are non-reliant on blue buff. Kayn's ganks are fairly strong even though he doesn't have a lot of CC, just because of the fact that it's so hard to see him coming. It's very difficult to ward against someone who can just walk through walls. The shadow indicator on the wall is not something that most players are used to yet, and they kind of just ignore it a lot of times. Most League players have regular brushes that they habitually ward. Kayn can go past all of those brushes. This allows Kayn to get closer than what most junglers would be able to, and that results in laners escaping later than they should have. Here's an example of a really good patient invade. Kayn takes Wraiths in red and proceeds to move towards the enemy's blue. Kayn uses Shadow Step to get inside the wall, but instead of revealing himself, he stays within the wall and waits for Gragas to appear. When Gragas fails to show up and do his blue on time, instead of doing it himself, Kayn goes and takes Scuttle Crab with mostly auto attacks. He then proceeds back over to blue and then proceeds to Q Smite to steal the first blue buff. He then uses Shadow Step to escape, but he's not actually done yet. Right after Kayn leaves Gragas' line of vision, he proceeds back into Gragas' jungle and proceeds to steal another camp of his. This only leaves Gragas with one camp, which is Krugs on the other side of the map, while Kayn still has his entire bottom jungle left. This eventually leads to a full level advantage. You shouldn't be looking for straight up 1v1s. You should be looking for the enemy jungler after they've used their resources to clear camps. Kayn has a lot of sustain in the jungle, and he can catch out enemy junglers really easily with his mobility. When you get a lead on an enemy jungler, you should not let up on the pressure. Keep abusing the weaker opponent with your high mobility. Generally speaking, junglers are melee champions, so that pushes progress towards your bruiser form. Now, Kayn's invades are fairly safe due to the fact that he's got so much mobility and escape, but that doesn't mean you should recklessly do so. When you invade, you're also wasting your laner's potential time because they might have to come and bail you out. Look at the lane matchups to see which one is stronger, and make counter jungling decisions based on that. Counter jungling on Kayn is as important as counter jungling on a champion like Nunu. Now let's talk about the different forms playstyles. Bruiser Kayn is based around skirmishes. Look for skirmishes in the jungle on Red Kayn so that you can more effectively use your crowd control. Your W is a line knockup, and if they're corralled in, you can more easily hit multiple people. Remember to use your Shadow Step in fights for the extra healing that it provides. Kayn's job is to go for the backline and keep them busy. If you cannot kill the enemy backline, waste their time with Q and Shadow Step. Because of his insane healing and his mobility, Kayn is a pain in the ass to take down. Both versions of Kayn are very good at diving. Since Kayn's ultimate is capable of dodging tower shots, it makes him ideal for tanking tower aggro. Kayn's ultimate is his best tool for survival. It can dodge just about anything. From tower shots to one-shotting ultimates to auto attacks, Kayn's ult has a great amount of potential to negate a lot of damage. You generally want to appear behind enemies with your ultimate, especially so on blue Kayn. Assassin Kayn's mid-game is focused around picks. Your WQ auto combo is really strong and you can burst people out really easily even if you're not that fed. On Assassin Kayn, you don't really need to be insanely ahead to 1v1 squishies easily, you just need the element of surprise. In the late game, Red Kayn's job is to just threaten backline and survive. Most bruisers insta-die when they get caught out, but with Red Kayn, you're guaranteed to stall them out for at least 2.5 seconds with your ult. His healing and line knockup buy a lot of time for his team. On top of his AoE HP shred spin, he gets a lot of teamfight potential by simply stalling them out and surviving for a long time. In this teamfight, Red Kayn gets caught. Red Kayn's ultimate heals based off percent HP, so if you ult a tank, you will basically get a full heal back. And even though he got caught, he still lives for a really long time, and this results in Kayn's team being able to position properly and eventually turn the team fight. This is what makes Red Kayn so effective, not his damage, but rather just his sheer survivability. If you fall behind on Assassin Kayn, remember that you cannot assassinate squishies if you do not have your ultimate. Your ultimate resets your passive, which is a lot of damage, and it prevents a lot of damage on your own champion. Without it, you're not really going to be assassinating anyone. Assassin Kayn in teamfights is just about getting to the backline and blowing them up when they're all alone, dodging crowd control and big ultimates with his own ultimate. Remember, when you commit to Assassin Kayn, you're also committing to a game plan that says, I will not allow this game to head into the late game. Red Kayn is always going to be more effective in teamfights because of his survivability. Some people will wait even up to the 18-minute mark to get the red form. You can build full damage on Red Kayn and still be fairly effective. You can't assassinate squishies as effectively as blue Kayn, but it's much easier to threaten them in teamfights because you still get healing and tankiness. Both versions of Kayn are very weak to crowd control. The first items that red and blue Kayn purchases are generally damage items, and they don't really make him that tanky. Red Kayn is able to survive for a long time because of his ultimate healing, but he can't use ultimate if he's crowd controlled, so he'll just insta-die. Blue Kayn is an assassin with a strong wall escape, but he can't use that if he's crowd controlled and he has nothing else, so he'll just insta-die. You play Assassin Kayn similarly to Rengar, just sitting in the enemy jungle waiting for picks on squishy champions. Waiting in the wings, ready to surprise someone and insta-burst them. In this team fight, Kayn sits at the back, out of vision, waiting for an opportunity. Even though there are two tanks right in front of him, he doesn't go for them. Instead, he goes out of his way to get to the squishy backline. Since the tanks have abandoned their backline, they have no effective peel. This is what Blue Kayn excels at. Not frontline fucker, but backline buster. Kayn excels at 2-target assassinations. At max CDR, your W is on a 5-second cooldown and your Q is on a 3-second cooldown. If you time everything properly, you can get 2 full rotations of your passive with all of your abilities in tow. And with that, you can insta-burst any regular squishy. A big problem that many Kayn players have is that they're just trying to play one version, Red Kayn. A good Kayn player has to be capable of playing both versions of Kayn. While Red might be strictly better in most situations, sometimes you need a snowbally assassin instead to close out a game faster since your team comp is shit. But since they're the same kit with 2 different playstyles, many players have difficulty adapting to both of them. 4 minutes can be a fairly long time to wait for a power spike, and sometimes it may just be better to take whatever form you already have. Kayn is a dangerous weapon that is very hard to use, but if you can use all of his parts, he is without a doubt overpowered. Hi there, my name's Donhwap. Thanks for watching. So, to give you an idea of what the blue and red distribution looks like, about 80% of all Kayn games are Bruiser Red Kayn players, and then about 20% are blue assassin players. So I don't want you to think that blue and red are equal in any way, shape, or form. Red is obviously much stronger. It's just that blue Kayn still has a place in the game. He still has a role to play as Kayn. Kayn as a general champion is pretty bonkers broken. Like, he is very strong. I mean, he's still fairly new and people are still figuring him out, but I'm pretty sure he's ridiculously strong. One thing while doing this video that I found really interesting is Daniel Klein actually made a post on Reddit comparing red and blue Kayn's damage output. Red Kayn, on average, actually deals more damage than blue Kayn if you build him full damage. The only difference is that blue Kayn is able to deal that damage in about less than half of the time that it takes red Kayn to deal the same amount of damage to squishies. So if you want, you can straight up build full damage on red Kayn as well. The highest rated Kayn player in Korea actually builds a variant of full damage Kayn. It looks a lot like an Assassin Kayn's build, except, you know, he's got Black Cleaver. This is the current Bruiser Kayn build that most Kayn players are going. Warrior Chant into Black Cleaver into Bruiser items and then full tank items. If you are going to go full damage on Red Kayn, buy Armor Penetration and Lethality. Most of his damage is physical HP shred, and that is heavily affected by armor. For blue Kayn players, most of their builds are pretty much all exactly the same. Get Warrior Enchant, Rush Dustblade, get more lethality so that your passive deals more damage. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions about Kayn, you can ask me on Twitter at @DotWhopLol. And until next time, bye!